Well, good morning and welcome to today's 20-minute update, BCF's monthly series of interactive calls and Facebook live streams to give you an inside look at BCF, our initiatives, and the work we do in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and the entire region. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ralph Serpy with BCF, and with me today is BCF Program Officer Billie Malcolm. Good morning, Billie.
Good morning.
Billie, before we get started, I really want to thank our Civic Leadership Fund donors for their support, especially our trustees and former trustees here at the Baltimore Community Foundation. It is really because of them that they provide the resources like for our 20-minute update, for our BCF Connect, for everything that we do in the community. So we thank them and you for joining us again. So today we are talking about early childhood education and specifically how BCF came to focus on school readiness as one of its education goals. So Billie, let's just jump right in.
Yeah.
Why is childhood education important to BCF, and how did you come to us to bring us there?
Well, I didn't bring us there. I jumped on board 5 months ago and very excited because of things like this. BCF's investment in something that is so important, such as child education, early childhood education. I came from the school system. I was there for 7 years, very much into education and knowing that it's the lever for young people. It wasn't my own life. So this is important to me, and I'm very serious about it. The early childhood piece, it's remarkable to see how it's come full circle, and it's so prominent now that there's federal legislation now. And to just know that, I don't want to say finally, but government really hearing what researchers said. And researchers said, those babies, those youngsters, even prenatal, you need to do things that support their development, because we have one window when they're little, when they're babies, infants, toddlers, and young children. Developmentally, they're going to experience some things that are permanent, foundational. The development of their brain, permanent, sets them on a trajectory. So many people like to engage when they're cute in, the early grades. Some may not have the patience for the young ones, definitely not the older ones. But with this early ed piece, I think it's just an excellent opportunity to really get in there, and it's a fun time.
So tell me what it looks like here in Maryland, and specifically in Baltimore City, the concept of a Judy Center. We talk about that a lot here at the Baltimore Community Foundation, how we've invested in Judy Centers to move the needle on school readiness, to get more children ready for school, ready to learn. Tell me about that concept and how that works.
Yeah, I think very smart of BCF again to find an initiative or strategy that really could maximize the impact that our donors had on this issue. So if you care about this issue, where do you go? There are a million nonprofits. There's a ton of schools. It may be intimidating to walk into a classroom and say, hey, I'm here to help. The concept of a Judy Center is brilliant. And Judy Centers are named after Judith Hoyer, Representative Steny Hoyer's wife, who passed in, I believe it was 1997. She just had this concept that you bring education to the table and you bring family engagement to the table to really support young people. Mm-hmm. Kudos to the state for working with Steny to really build out a model that is being implemented right now in 52 centers across the state. So now we have 12 in Baltimore City, an explosion of numbers based on BCF's total engagement of let's do this, let's put all hands on deck and raise the money to expand the centers that are here.
Well, let's talk about what specifically they do to get kids ready. If you're just joining us on Facebook live stream or on our phone call, I'm Ralph Serpy with BCF. We're joined with Billie Malcolm today to talk about early childhood education and specifically our funding of our goal around school readiness through Judy Centers. Tell us more about Judy Centers and how they get kids ready for school.
So in Baltimore City, which is where we raised $6 million to raise that number incredibly. In Judy Centers, you have so many people looking for a center. I like to just look at it as a strategy, and there are supports and resources in that strategy. So when you see a Judy Center, you actually see a school. You walk in and you might see the early ed wing of a school. You'll see pre-K classes and K classes, but there's magic behind the person that oftentimes is invisible, and that's the Judy Center coordinator. That coordinator's job is to secure resources that support families and young children. And so they rock. Like,
and when we say young children, we're talking about
zero
to 5?
That's right. Sorry. Yes, definitely 0 to 5, and supporting those families. And again, very important here because, as I said before, you have a window to work with these young people. So to make sure these babies and children have these interventions. It could be right now we have some great partners doing some literacy interventions so that these children, before they turn 5, actually know how to read and write. Our low-income urban children can outperform folks. Do you believe it?
Some
people don't believe it, but the Judy Center strategy, really that heavy intervention, that heavy emphasis on professional development, even bringing partnerships to the table that go beyond the school walls. So within the community that surrounds a school that's hosting a Judy Center, they're working with the informal childcare partners. I did daycare years ago in college. Mm-hmm. I was a daycare worker. No one ever told me that I was an educator. I was a babysitter, so I thought. What I love about this concept of partnering with the informal care providers is it's introducing this concept that you're more than a babysitter. You even now, even if it's an infant, are an educator. So again, getting that, and then just side note, for the city, there are real challenges. There are housing challenges. There are food challenges. It is rough in some parts of our city.
So the Judy Center coordinator is not only responsible for finding those resources in a neighborhood for the children 0 to 5, but also for their families.
Absolutely.
And for bringing those resources together to be a central point at the Judy Center. And then also reaching out to those who provide informal or other daycare in that region. So they're
so comprehensive.
Yeah.
Because I talked about, again, the developmental piece. You get this window. What about a parent? You get a window to engage them in their child's education that could set a precedent for how they support their child throughout. So a lot of our donors like this because you think about it. We have wealthy folks, right, that donate. They made their money by making good investments.
Well, we have generous people.
And we have wealthy people. But it's true. But my point about even the wealthy is that they made strategic decisions. They made investments and they looked ahead to see, projecting, is this going to be successful? Same here.
Right. So tell me what happens when, answer me these 2 questions.
Okay.
What is school readiness? Mm-hmm. So when a child gets to kindergarten, first grade, what are they looking for a child to be ready?
So it's not just colors and numbers and names and reading, right? It is social, emotional, the intellectual. There's an acronym, and I don't know who started it, PILES.
Okay.
So physical, intellectual, language/literacy, emotional, and social. And I love that little acronym because it reminds me that this is about a whole child and not just can you write your name.
So what happens when a child gets to kindergarten in a Baltimore City or Baltimore County public school and they are not ready to learn? What happens then?
What do you think happens?
You tell me.
They fall behind and they stay behind. For a period, very few children can emerge out of that, right? No matter how many supports, because we may have missed that window that solidified how they think. Again, there are still a population of children who are being exposed to lead in our area. They're going to get an early detection or intervention in a Judy Center program because someone's paying attention to them and their families. Mm-hmm. And so once you get over these major hurdles, you're able to focus. You're able to, and here's the amazing part. We have a number of partners as well that are teaching families how to engage with their child. They're actually showing them. And it's not an insult to parenting. I'm a parent. No one taught me how to be a parent. But these partners are coming in to just, it's almost like moving the clutter of life away just to have a space for your child. Here's what your child is thinking. Here's what they're doing. Here's where they should be. That you can't replace. I was
fortunate to see a Liberty Elementary Judy Center program where it wasn't just parents, grandparents, or being taught how to read to their children, and all that encompasses, not just reading to a child, but being physically close to them, letting them engage with the book and all that.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. That's
setting
part of that.
routines, and connection is part of the emotional development of a child.
So I'm sure folks on the phone and folks on Facebook have lots of questions for us. If you're on Facebook, please ask your question down there in the comments section. Also, please remember to like and share this stream. That's really helpful. If you are on the phone with us, let me grab my notes. Right, we're going to open it up for questions. If you called in today, please press *6 now to unmute your line, and you can ask a question. And listen up, because if once you ask your question, please press *6 again to remute your line. Otherwise, we can hear you typing and talking in the background. So if you have a question for Billie Malcolm about early childhood education, Judy Centers in particular, school readiness and that goal, please press *6 to unmute your line and ask that question. We're also joined today by Andrew Waldman, our social media guy, and Mike Wen, who helps put this out on the web for us. And if we have questions that come in through social media, they'll pass them over to us, Billie.
Good.
And if you don't know the answer, I do have a magic 8-ball pen.
Oh my.
So you can just click on the magic 8-ball pen and you can give an answer that way.
And you knew I needed a pen. Just in case I get a question that I need to think about. Yeah.
So if you're on the line with us and you'd like to ask a question, once again, please press *6 to unmute your line.
It's the week before or the week of Thanksgiving.
Well, we get thousands of people who will watch this live stream over the course of the month. So we are prepared with our own questions if people don't jump in and ask questions with us. So can you share with us how instrumental Judy Centers have been in helping us raise school readiness in Baltimore City?
I think it's significant. The KRA results, which are the state's measure of kindergarten readiness.
KRA.
KRA, that's right. They came out in the spring. The kids test in November, so I'm actually not sure exactly when they test, but by this spring we will have data for 2 years on the Judy Centers here in the city. And the great news is that our Judy Centers, or children that have had experience with the Judy Center, outperform their city peers by 6 percentage points. That's thumbs up. And this is my favorite one. 3 percentage points higher than the state. And I think for me that's a big point because it came from the school system. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have a chip on your shoulder with the city school system because everyone says, they're not doing anything there at the city, or we're always at the bottom or the troubled district. But did you hear what I said? 3 percentage points higher than the state. That's major. And it sounds like a small number, but just a few years back, we were trailing the state. So to see that our young children with these supports in place are able to outperform their peers by any percentage points is amazing. And again, we're talking about Title I communities where the poverty rates are higher, right? And the challenges, and I'm just talking about statistics, are tough. And so it's, yes, these children are learning with support.
And why this concept of a Judy Center where it's not just daycare.
Right, that's right.
It is really comprehensive. Where
it's beautiful.
It's
I've been in there. I've been in the classes where sometimes it's just about, and I've been to all but 2 of them in my 5 months here. It's just that's what's awesome about it. It is this standard model that really is customized per neighborhood. And that coordinator, along with their family services coordinator, have to have their finger on the pulse of that community. What does that community need?
So where are they in Baltimore?
Let's see. Can I go down the line? I wrote them down because there's 12 of them, and I love it.
Let's go.
We have Arundel over in the Cherry Hill area, Liberty over in West Baltimore. John Eager Howard is a location that kind of is bundled with Samuel Coleridge Taylor and Furman Templeton. Curtis Bay in Curtis Bay. Arlington up in the northwest. Hartford Heights, not too far from here.
Right up here.
That's right. Moravia, way out on the east side. Commodore John Rogers, not too far from here. John Rura out there by Johns Hopkins Bayview, and then Utah Marshburn, not too far from here.
Yeah.
So spread throughout the city, and I wish we had our cool graphic. But just to see these supports in action in response to their community is pretty awesome. Because at John Rura, I think it's like 75% of the children are Hispanic children that have Spanish being spoken in their home. It's like, that's a very unique challenge compared to West Baltimore, where you don't see that,
right.
Or Curtis Bay that may have food insecurity issues, or, so you just see these Judy Centers.
And that's why the Judy Center coordinator's job to be out, to know what's happening in that community is really important.
Rock.
We have a couple of questions coming through our Facebook. The first is there legislation that can increase resources for early childhood education? You touched on this a little bit about the tide turning and the focus on early childhood education, but is there legislation that could increase resources for early childhood?
For the first time now in the new Every Student Succeeds Act, for the first time we see early childhood written into law. So the feds have set this precedent that then the states will implement. And so with that, not only is a guidance, but also resources. And so the Obama administration, I know we're in a political season, but I don't think really gets credit for really pushing the preschool initiatives. Here in Baltimore City, kudos to the leadership who have expanded pre-K. It is on a priority system. So if you're low income or homeless or special education issues going on with your child, your priority. And then priority 2 is just anyone else, but the seats are limited. So there's still a need, right? So you need this federal mandate to come down so that states can say, okay, this is real. Not only are you just saying it, but you're providing supports for it. MSDE, which is the Maryland State Department of Education, has been amazing with their vision. And Judy Center is just here in Maryland. Again, kudos to the state for making sure that happens. And they keep the centers high quality. So some folks, and again, political season, government. But the one thing I can honestly say is you have government personnel that very much care about this issue. And when they're going in to validate these, all of our new centers, we have 5 new centers inside of that 12. They're going through their accreditation, and they will be held to the fire with constant monitoring, not over monitor, but constant quality. And then there's this network of 52 around the state that can just kind of exchange best practices. So it's a great model.
Right, and with Judy Centers, I know they all have to check 12 boxes as to what they do.
12 components.
12 components, but they're all in different communities, they're all in different neighborhoods. So they all look a little different.
And there's flexibility. Again, so I've dealt with some compliance and regulatory issues where it's so narrow and your heart aches because they're not sensitive to the community. This model is sensitive to the community. And so it's able to evolve into what that community needs.
There is so much to talk about in terms of how BCF got to, through its strategic plan, to look at school readiness as an issue, as a goal that it wanted to tackle. And then discovering Judy Centers as a statewide model and looking at how underrepresented they were in Baltimore City. And then going through what I would say some pretty impressive leverage work with both city schools and the state MDSC to say to them, we'll fund a portion of this for the first 3 years to demonstrate that we can increase school readiness in Baltimore City. And then in exchange, the state and the city schools will take over funding going forward. And part of our role, and to the second question is BCF considering working to sustain success? I didn't do that as a warm-up earlier. At Judy Centers through education support for older children. I will say what we wrote into this plan is to make sure that we can keep the pressure on early childhood education through our advocacy work, because we're not just a grant maker. We don't do initiatives, but it's this work around the advocacy work we do on the local, state, and sometimes national level. So on this question of education support through older children, because there's a lot that encompasses education.
Yeah.
Here's a question about...
I'm the education program officer. Amen.
Right. So So what happens after grade 1 or grade 3? How does this
Yeah.
tie into what else is happening?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, just
like the middle grades partnership or what happens in upper grades.
yeah, but if I'm understanding you, the question is specifically about Judy Centers, and Judy Centers are early ed, and to get away from that model is getting away from the model. So our investment in Judy Centers is our investment in Judy Centers. We also invest in a number of different educational initiatives, and I'm sure that'd be another call. But I just think that for the older children, if we do right in these centers, which we are, we give them a gift that they continue to take with them.
Yeah.
And I think what you're finding too is Baltimore is big on relationships. And our families in particular don't trust easy, right? And there's a lot of reasons to not trust based on some things that have happened recently in our news, right, that the world now knows about. And so it's important for Baltimore to trust our families, to stay connected. So the benefit is really an indirect, soft benefit in that you've built a relationship with this person that you trust, that you trusted your child with, that you trusted yourself with. And so along that continuum, you can keep going back to that person. That's all informal. That's not written into the 12 components that you continue to support these families and their children. But I'll bet you that those coordinators on the ground, they're great people. Those people are not going to turn away someone who needs a resource. If they can't do it in the limitations of their model, their heart is going to help that family get what they need for that child.
And that's why the Baltimore Community Foundation invests in Judy Centers, invests in the people who run these Judy Centers. I'm Ralph Serpi with Billie Malcolm. You've been listening to BCF's 20-minute update on early childhood education and school readiness. Billie Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here as well. We're coming up to 9:20, which means our 20-minute update has come to an end. Please join us next month, Tuesday, December 20th. We're going to look at a preview of the Maryland 2017 legislative session. As I said that we do, we're much more than grants and individual initiatives. We're all about advocacy, and we'll talk about what we're looking at, including our education efforts for 2017. We'll do that on December 20th.
I need to give a shout out. Put that up.
You
Put
do.
that up. I want
So
all those coordinators to get a shout out.
We will ask Mike to put
Zoom
this up as a
in.
graphic later on. But in the meantime, here are our dear friends at Judy Centers across Baltimore that have been really helpful to us. A special shout out to our friend Michelle at Moravia, who has just been wonderfully open and welcoming everyone we wanted to see the model of a Judy Center. She's just been really wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Billie. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you working with us here. And to everyone else, have a great day. Thank you for joining us.